I'm just going to talk as you slowly connect to audio and join us. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I'm stalling a little bit just to make sure everybody can join. Thank you for being here. I'll first and foremost note that this conversation is being live captioned. So please check out the closed captioning button on the bottom of your screen, and you can add captions to it. And if you're speaking, it'll make you very self-conscious. So I'm gonna hide mine. And we have it also in the chat. Familiarize yourselves with the chats. Folks, this is a community center event, so please, we're happy to see your faces. We miss everybody. Please, you're welcome to leave your cameras on if you're fully dressed. And we love checking out your living rooms. Also, of course, once we get started, you're going to want to switch from gallery view to speaker view. But right now, check out gallery view, see who else you might know who's here. Wave to friends. You could reach them probably through the chat. I haven't tried. And in just one more minute, we're going to get officially started. So bear with me for a couple of more minutes. Okay, folks, I think I'm ready to get things started. Welcome, my name is Isaac Zablocki. I'm the Director of Film Programs at Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan, and I'm also the Director and co-founder of the ReelAbilities Film Festival, where we first presented our Time Machine. We're really excited that this film is having its release this week, and it's a film that I think should be seen by people of all ages, possibly together, if only. I want to give a big thanks to Betsy Tsai, who helped organize the details of this event. I also want to thank the Maisels Theater for being one of the presenters here and helping to get the word out. But most of all, I'll tell you right now, and I'll remind you this at the end, if you've all seen this film and realize what a wonderful film this is, please be telling all of your friends to see this film. These are not the films that have the huge marketing budgets that some other films have, and it's possibly not a film that that is first to sell itself, and I think it needs this word of mouth. So please do help spread the word. I will mention, as we all start connecting, I will mention our upcoming screenings on next week. We're screening the film from IFC Films. It's an IFC release. We're having a very special preview here called Ottolenghi and the Cakes of Versailles. It's a fascinating film about a program, an exhibit that the Met did. When I saw this film originally, the Met was still closed, so I saw it with these yearning eyes, as it gave you a nice insider tour of the Met. But it's all led by the chef Ottolenghi, Yotam Ottolenghi, who is an Israeli chef living in London, who brings chefs from all around the world together to kind of create a culinary aspect to this exhibit. It's fascinating. It's very timely, actually, and it's going to sell out. So please get your tickets in advance. In honor of Yom Kippur coming up on September 28th, we're going to have our annual Forgive Me Filmathon, and we're going to share some films relating to forgiveness and have a conversation. So please join us for that as a very unique way of honoring the holiday. And then on the 28th till September 30th, we are screening the film A Call to Spy, also a film that's going to be released by IFC about a true story of a World War II spy, and we're going to have the filmmakers there for that conversation as well. So please join us for that and more, and you can find all the films at jccfilm.org. But now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panel for tonight. I'm going to start with this conversation is going to go, I feel, beyond the film and really to some of the messages I think that lie in some of the elements within the film. First, let me introduce the director of the film, S. Leo Chiang. Leo, thank you so much for being here. He's the director of the film and the founder of ADOC. This is his second Q&A with us. We had a wonderful Q&A back in April, I guess, and in early April as part of ReelAbilities, and thank you for coming back. What time is it there by you?
Myself. It is 8:36 a.m. I am in Taipei, so that's sunlight. That's not a really big, bright stage light, which will be really nice if I was able to get that for a Q&A.
We usually ship them to everyone who's on our Q&As, but Taipei was just too far. We're also going to be joined by Dr. Jinyu Lo. She's an associate professor at Columbia University School of Social Work, also faculty affiliate of the Weatherhead East Asian Institute, and her research focuses broadly on aging and health, which is very relevant, of course, to this film. In particular, she studies the determinants of stress, Chinese family caregivers, and effects of social support on the mental health of Asian older adults. Wow, the connection just is so perfect for this film. Thank you for being here.
Sure, my pleasure.
And she's not really at the Columbia Library at the moment. It's a virtual background.
I pretend to be there, yeah.
And finally, Serene is from CaringKind, who's actually one of our partners on the festival. So she's currently a social work supervisor, the Heart of Alzheimer's Caregiving, formerly known as Alzheimer's Association, New York City chapter. So of course these themes play very strongly. She's also she conducts the Understanding Dementia workshop in Chinese facilities, a monthly Cantonese support group for caregivers, and contributes quarterly Chinese newsletters. So of course, very well connected and can shed a lot of light. So this is my opportunity to tell you that you will have some questions. I hope you've seen the film and have questions already, but if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will call on you and contact you and ask that you ask those questions live. I'm going to start off with a few questions, and let me start with Leo by asking you, how did this all start? How did you come about this film?
So I actually made this film with the film partner, Yang Sun, who is a young filmmaker based in Shanghai. And Yang was actually the one that first was introduced to Ma Liang. Ma Liang was embarking on the beginning of the production of the puppet performance called Papa's Time Machine, which is the show that's in our film. And he was looking for somebody to kind of make a behind the scene video, if you will, for the production. And Yang was connected to Ma Liang, and that's actually how we first approached him. And Yang and I actually decided to collaborate a few months later when he brought the film to a documentary conference here in Taipei. And you know, he showed 3 minutes of the footage and where Ma Liang recounted the swimming pool story, which is his pivotal story in our film, where he talked about how his father had forgotten that he was asking the same question over and over again. And that story was just so incredibly moving for me that I, kind of offered to collaborate with him, first as a producer, but it became pretty quickly that because Yang was 25 and I'm in my 40s, and Ma Liang, our main subject's also in his 40s, that my perspective from somebody at this age, kind of watching my parents aging and wondering, what the next steps will be, that my contribution was going to be really important as a director. So we decided to collaborate fully. That was in 2015, so it took us about 3 years to finish the film. And it premiered at Tribeca Film Festival 2019 in April.
I have many more questions, but I'm just going to bring our other two guests into the conversation. And by the way, feel free, everyone can answer any question, but just to bring you in, and then we'll explore all these topics a little bit more. Let me start with Jinyu. Tell me a little bit about your professional reaction to the film when you saw this. And as I mentioned, as I stuttered through your bios, I feel both of you are very, very connected to the themes of the film. And I'm eager to hear from you kind of your first reactions when you saw the film.
To be honest, I didn't watch the whole film yet, but I did watching the trailer. It was very impressive to me, especially I'm pretty impressed by the son, Ma Liang, you know, his way to show his feeling, his perspective, his reaction to his father's cognitive impairment. Because in my personal life, I also watch how my husband react to his father's, you know, disease, cognitive impairment. Probably different persons, because of their different background, different culture, different personalities, they may have different reactions. But to see how artists show, you know, their feeling, it's very impressive to me. And also in my in the past few years, I interviewed many caregivers, you know, family members whose fathers, whose mothers, whose husbands or wives have dementia or Alzheimer's disease or other types of cognitive issues. But it was my first time to see how artists are using, you know, his professional skill to react to, you know, this experience or this feeling.
And I'm going to want to return to that question of the use of art later on. Let me just ask Serene, tell us a little bit about your reaction. Have you seen the film?
Yeah. So hi, good evening, everyone. And good morning to Leo. So I watched this film when it first came out a year ago. And I was really impressed in terms of how the relationship being manifested throughout the film, especially when the son actually projected so much his internal feeling when on one side he has to attend to his career, and on the other side that he also has the obligation in terms of the father and son relationship. So that happens a lot when you have to juggle so much in life, especially in my line of work. I met with a lot of different caregivers, spouse caring for another spouse, adult children caring for their parents, sibling caring for another siblings, or just friends caring for their neighbors, their friends. And so there's so much stuff that you cannot just say this is caregiving. There's so much different story, different individual story that portray. And so I'm really happy to see that being enlarged in the film as well.
And that's really one of the most amazing things about this film is there's so much there. There's so much detail and so much depth. And there's a few different, I feel like, layers or stories being told in many ways. There's the story of the development of the play itself, and getting into the details of, you know, the puppetry and everything else that's there, that all the details that go into that. There's the father-son relationship. There's the line of the relationship with the between the father and the play. There's a father-son relationship that I feel that goes on that's unrelated to his father's deterioration, but just to a son and his own story. And yes, and then there's all the other individual stuff that are going on with Ma Liang's kind of character and his involvement, and it's amazing to see that he actually, I feel, goes through an evolution in those 3 years that I guess you followed him. Leo, could you tell us a little bit about how you worked with all these different pieces that were coming together, and really what was your system in telling the story?
Well, we knew starting out that there was going to be two thread of the story that we were going to follow. You know, we were interested in the production of the stage performance itself. We knew that there was going to be a trajectory of him trying to overcome some logistical obstacles and some creative challenges in order to finish the play and premiere it. At the same time, we knew that the family was going through a period of transition, you know, with the diagnosis of Ma Liang's father's dementia, Alzheimer's, and that if we just follow the family and they let us, you know, capture the scenes that unfold in their life, that we were going to, you know, be able to get a story that could be really intimate and personal and resonant. So that was how we set up to approach this film, not really knowing how the film is going to end. And that often happens with documentaries where you know, you kind of just jump in with blind faith and knowing that if certain elements in the story move me, that I trust that it will move the audience as well. We certainly didn't know, you know, what had happened or what was going to happen in terms of Ma Liang's personal life. We didn't know what the result of the play was going to be. So that's kind of how we set forth. The different relationships in the film was really interesting. Initially, we really conceived it as a two-character story, that the father and the son play equal role in our story. But it became pretty obvious to us pretty quickly that Ma Ke, the father, isn't, he's, you know, he's sort of his challenges, you know, cognitively really prevented him from having kind of a transformation, which is what we're always looking for in a story like this. You know, over the years, we want our character to learn something new, to you know, to share some new discoveries in their lives. But with Ma Ke, it was you know, it was just he would keep telling the same stories over and over again, you know, which is kind of a hallmark of dementia and Alzheimer's, and it was really difficult for him to go further in terms of sharing the deeper thoughts that he had with what was unfolding in front of him. So we ended up focusing the story mostly on Ma Liang, the son. Besides the father and son, we thought the mother's role was really interesting. You know, we ended up really very much this film focusing on the caregivers in Ma Ke's life, and the struggles that they've all experienced. And we've also have gotten a lot of feedback from folks who have lived with you know, loved ones who are suffering from dementia, about how some of these scenes were painful to watch, because in some ways it was very accurate. It sort of depicts their frustration and their struggle, you know, having to be in the caregiver position.
And this is a perfect way for me to ask this next question, as far as the family relations and Alzheimer's, dementia, and people who are experiencing similar experiences. I'm wondering, and this really goes to Jinyu and Serene, the parts that the family plays in this experience, and there seems to be a struggle, I'd say, from both sides. There's the caretaker, the children, and the family members struggle, and of course there's the struggle with the person who there's the person himself or herself who is actually, who has the Alzheimer's, is that how would you say, what parts do family members play in this?
You mean
and
caregivers?
We could start with Jinyu, yes, as caregivers.
Okay, as caregivers. So in academia or in studies, we always differentiate caregivers or family caregivers by primary caregivers or secondary caregivers. It is a team job to take care of people with dementia, Alzheimer's disease or other types of dementia. And also the whole caregiving work also involves other family members who may not actually provide any care or personal care to the person with Alzheimer's disease, especially when some important decision-making is needed. So right now, my student and I, actually, we are collecting data from Shanghai, from some families, caregivers who are taking care of their older people with dementia in Shanghai. And particularly, we focus on some decisions about end-of-life care, when the time, comes. So what kind of treatment the family will use or not use, how the family make a decision. It's very complicated. It's not only about caregiver's perspective. Sometimes the primary caregiver's perspective may be different from the secondary caregiver, and also different from other family members. At the same time, the healthcare workers, like a physician, should be the expert with the most knowledge on treatment, and how the different stakeholders play the roles and have the conversation. Is very complicated, and also depends on what's the relationship with the care receivers. If you are a spouse, your feeling, your perspectives might be quite different from your children. And when the spouse make a decision for the care receivers, the spouse also need to think about what my children will think about my decision. So I would say it's a teamwork. It's a team job. So whenever we think about family caregivers, it's not only just the individual. We should really think about in the family units.
Serene?
Yeah, so I have been working at CaringKind in the past 9 years. And so seeing a lot of different story and also a lot of challenge that every family has to embrace with. And so CaringKind's role in this whole journey is to be there for the family, be there for the person with dementia as well. From understanding what the disease is all about, to getting a support group that can be a right platform when you have those struggle moments, when you cannot really process most of the stuff, and when there's no one really understand what you're going through. That is the support group is there for. And as a social worker, our job is also to help family to plan for the future, how the care system will play a big role in the next 5, 10, 20 years when we're talking about a disease that has no cure, and the best medicine is the care that this person can receive. So it is a lot of stuff involved, and I totally agree with what Professor Liu mentioned, that this whole system, and even not just in the family, but also in the society, how our country also setting up policy for hospital, for doctors, for care system, nursing home, to play a role in it as well.
Thank you. Jumping into another topic, that this film that we mentioned before, art, of course, plays a huge part in this film. And first of all, artistically, this film is so beautiful. Really one of the most stunning documentaries I've seen in recent years. And I mean, I think I'm assuming you put a lot of time and energy into really making a beautifully shot film, as far as trying to work with this puppet theater experience and showing those. I'd say especially Maliang's art in such a beautiful way, and art also plays a big part in, as we've mentioned, in I think the experience of people with Alzheimer's or dementia, and is a tool to use. I've learned. So let me start with Leo to tell us just a little bit about some of the choices you made with you're telling a story about a show within a film. And how you made some of those artistic choices, and how you feel it felt more, if it felt more relevant to you, as far as its use within the world of Alzheimer's.
In terms of the sort of the artistic approach or the aesthetic of the film, we very much feel like our film is an extension of Ma Liang's work on Papa's Time Machine, the puppet performance. For instance, a lot of the shadow puppetry that you see in the film, and we have a scene in the film of Ma Liang shooting those shadow puppetry scenes. So that's actually Ma Liang's material. And the other thing is that, for folks who are familiar with live theater, that the props, the details of the props really does not need to be as intricate as the puppets that you see in our film, because you're far from the audience and you are trying to construct a look for somebody looking from 10, 15, 20, 30 feet away. But Ma Liang being, in a way, a novice stage artist, but a meticulous sculptor, he made those puppets in such fantastic details that it allow us with our camera to capture the texture, with the close-ups. So the way that how our film ended up looking was very much, a reaction of Ma Liang's sense of aesthetic. But we also know that was one of the main elements that we were drawn to the story, and we definitely wanted to find ways to share that with the audience very much. In terms of the role of art and creativity in dementia and Alzheimer's, I think that Jinyu and Serene will have probably more interesting things to say. But this, for us, we did observe this. One of the sub-storylines in our film was Marco, the father, really desperately trying to finish his autobiography, and that he kept struggling around that. In some ways it gave him a purpose to know that was a project that he could keep going back to and revisiting, because he was not really working in theaters anymore, and that was his creative outlet, and it was important for him. And it was also important for him to leave a legacy. But at the same time, we also witnessed the frustration that he had, not being able to push that project to completion. So those were the pieces that we did observe.
Serene, tell us a little bit about art and Alzheimer's.
Oh, definitely. So I think the science has shown us more and more in terms of how our brain function. Music, art, dance, movement, those are different forms that our brain can still retain the memory, even it's progressing so far gone in terms of the cognitive functioning. And recently there's a lot of different research and documentary as well, and talking about how music can still help a lot. And at CaringKind, we actually connect with different museum, gallery, Lincoln Center, dance studio, to use different type of therapy to support the person that has dementia. You will be surprised that even they can no longer talk and produce any meaningful sentence or conversation, the music will still be able to remain in their brain. And when they hear the sound of the music, the tune of it from their childhood, the brain just get filed up. And so amazing.
Amazing. And that's something, of course, that connects directly to the film. There was a moment of, my memory is not so great. I had seen the film back before ReelAbilities, but I do remember there was a connection there with a song that they were singing together. Am I right, Leo?
Yeah. And actually, you know, we just talked to Ma Liang, and he's mentioning that he's saying that, you know, one of the things that the father's memory really has deteriorated. Now he's having a hard time remembering Ma Liang. He calls him the big guy. You know, he doesn't really remember him as his name or as a son. But one thing that they do still connect is that they sit and listen to the picking up part together, because those are memories from the father's childhood. You know, he was trained, you know, in that traditional manner as a young child in the troupe. So all that is still very much a part of him, and he definitely responds to that.
Jinyu, did you want to add to this at all as well?
Yeah, that really reminds my joke with my husband, you know, because I'm doing research on dementia caregivers. So I pretty know, you know, how to calm down a person with Alzheimer's disease when they're frustrated. So I just told my husband, if I got this disease, a very effective way is to play the music, because I play piano from childhood. So that will be a very effective way to make me calm down. So what I mean is, so now in academia, there are pretty well-established program. We call it a tailored activity. So when we create activity for people with Alzheimer's disease or other types of dementia, we really need to know the person's life history. You know, was his or her favorite form of art, music, or image, or even, you know, what's their job background, what's their career background. For example, Marco often feels comfortable when, you know, she sits in the theater, although maybe she could not work as she was working, you know, in the theater. Like my father-in-law, you know, he is a farmer. He just feels very comfortable, you know, when sitting in the farm. So different person have different stories, different backgrounds, different interests. So when we create activity for people with dementia, we really need to involve or incorporate their background.
Fascinating. I want to take some questions from the audience. I know there's a couple of questions, but and of course, if you have questions, this is your time to put them in the chat box. If you can't use the chat box, please raise your hand, either visually or with the raise hand function, and we'll call on you. But before, you gave us a little bit of a background, Leo, as far as where they are now, but any other updates on Meliang and Maka?
So Maka and you know, Ma Liang's parents, they're both still in the retirement home that they moved to. Their physical health is actually, you know, they're doing quite well. And then I mentioned earlier that Maka's memory has continued to deteriorate, but and it actually had been difficult because of the pandemic, because the care facility shut down and was not allowing any visitors for quite a while, so they weren't able to connect as much as they like. I don't want to, I guess I'll just give away the ending. My mom's baby is now 2 years old, and she's adorable. We actually did a Q&A last weekend where we brought back the little puppet, Makuji, who Ma Liang keeps referring to as the little baby Deng Deng's older brother, and they play together. You know, she was tickling him like he's a real boy, and it was a really lovely interaction. So Ma Liang is continuing to do work. He was supposed to do a big photography project in Japan this year, but that was canceled. So he's sort of gearing up for new projects, hopefully next year. He actually just had a art opening in Shanghai this last weekend as well. So he continued to be very busy as an artist. So.
Great. We have a question from the audience. I'm going to hand things over to Bilha, who's going to ask the first question.
Hi. First of all, I enjoyed the movie very, very much. It was so very well done. The artistry of Melan's was absolutely amazing. I was wondering, well, actually, one of my questions was answered. I wanted to know if he has any shows anywhere or whether he's exhibited in museums, and also whether he only deals with metals as a medium or does he use other medium for his art? And if he is shown somewhere, I would love to know where and how we could see it.
Thanks for that question. So Ma Liang is actually primarily a photographer. That's actually his main medium. So he has always done a lot of photography projects. But you saw in the film that he's also a sculptor. He's actually done, big metal sculptures for big, commercial, shoots and whatnot. So he does art direction as well. In the U.S., he actually is represented by the Furman Gallery in New York. I think it's a gallery in Chelsea. I think that they have some of his work. I don't know if they're on show, but they're certainly available there. He does show internationally. He has shows all over Europe and sometimes in the U.S. If you go to his website, which is maliang.com, MALEONN.com, you actually will see a lot of his work online and also any news about upcoming exhibits and whatnot. He's also really active on Facebook, and he's a lot of the audiences of fans of the film have been friending him, and he's gladly friended them back, and you actually can see him posting a lot of his bigger scale work, but also little projects that he does. He did a series where he photoshopped his baby girl into all these Western masterpiece paintings, and they're hilarious. They're sort of wonderful. So he's a guy with a great sense of humor, and that definitely reflects in his work. But yes, if you would like to see his work in person, I think that your best chances is to reach out to the Furman Gallery. I think it's spelled FREMIN Gallery.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Arnold, who is enjoying his time on a beach right now.
Background. That's actually my background. I wish I was, if I'm not. Yeah, this is. I had a question on. Just let me one more thing. How would this? Can I say about dementia? I totally forgot about it. It's like, how would this film connect to social relationship and because I'm a Christian point of view, so I know Christian and I'm a Jewish supporter. So like how would this film relate to social relationship and family history in a person with this disability? And the second question was, how would a social worker helps as an individual out in this film or as an assistant? In this group of questions.
Thank you, Arnold. Want to share a little how social? Yes, Serene.
Yeah, so I can answer the second question in terms of how the social worker can be helpful to the individual and also to the family. So in this case, the family actually, Ma Liang is the secondary caregiver. The mom actually is the primary caregivers. And we often see there's different dynamic in terms of the decision making, in terms of the care being provided and planned out. And definitely we welcome any player in the whole system to learn more about the disease and talk about how they feel across the whole gamut of the disease progression. Definitely the resources are available from training, from workshops, from support group. Those are available to any type of caregivers. Yeah, and definitely is the mom will reach out more because the stress, she will feel more in terms of caregiving for the husband. Yeah.
Jinyu, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think social worker could do a lot to support the family caregivers. As CaringKind has done a wonderful job in running tons of programs for caregivers. And also actually, we've also served a very strong peer support among the caregivers. That's what I'm doing to, by collaborating with Serene and her colleagues to see how to build a platform to really help these caregivers help each other, maybe like by one-on-one mentoring or counseling. And Aaron has an earlier question about social relationship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a very good point. So now I know a lot of my my peer scholars or researchers really focus on the friendly neighborhood for people with dementia. How we could build a neighborhood who, to make everyone could accommodate or also make it a very positive, very comfortable, very safe environment for the people with dementia and their family members. So that's what we are trying to do. That's a big project. Involves not only involves everyone in the society to build such wonderful environment for this population.
I actually have a follow-up question in some ways for these guys. I know that one of the things that we keep coming across is sort of the particular challenge of stress and of caregivers within the Chinese, Chinese American community, the sort of the taboo and the tradition of it being something that's a family's problem. I don't know if you guys think that that's changed or that there's a shifting perspective towards the dementia and Alzheimer's within the Chinese community.
Yeah, I think the name itself is getting people more attention. So in the Chinese, the way that we use the Chinese word for dementia is 老人痴呆症. And so what literally means is that elderly who is crazy and who is dumb for that disease. And so it's not really accurate to depict what this is all about. And so in the recent movement in Taiwan, in Hong Kong, and even in mainland China, there's a lot of consideration in changing that wording for the community. And more on that is that in New York City, we have a large population for the Chinese immigrants. And so at CaringKind, we do have Chinese outreach work in terms of how to normalize and how to help people to understand that there are still possible options to the care, to the stress. And so I think doing more work and talk about more on that, and definitely will take away those shamefulness in that.
Yeah, I would say it still exists, but I think it gets better, because of the effort from our professionals, outreach, and education. Like a couple of years ago, when I collect data from Chinese American caregivers, a lady still, will make an appointment in her friend's house because she doesn't want, her neighbors know, a scholar, a researcher visit her because her mother-in-law had dementia. Because their concern is, that's a family gene. then they will get really discrimination, stigma, and not only on the older adults, but also the children or even grandchildren.
Very interesting. Folks, before we sign off, I want to give 2 more reminders. First of all, I want to thank our amazing panel. So please put your hands together for this amazing panel. The first reminder is to tell everybody you know about this film, and not just enjoy it yourselves, but even in these isolating times, let people enjoy the film, bring the community together around film. And of course, this conversation here will be on our YouTube channel tomorrow, so you could check it out there. You could also check out the conversation we had during ReelAbilities. It's already up there on our ReelAbilities YouTube channel. Also, I'll share that the JCC, the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan, is actually starting to open up. It's starting its first steps, I think, today or tomorrow, as far as opening first with our nursery school and then with our gym. One of the programs that came through our fitness center was an Alzheimer's program, and we're hoping that will come back sometime soon. So please keep your eyes open for that, and know that there's a wonderful resource there that also uses arts and fitness to help people with Alzheimer's. It's been a wonderful program that's been using dance for many years, and used to be in collaboration with NYU, but has grown into its own program. So please, that's a great place to refer people. I want to refer people also, of course, to CaringKind. And I want to thank all of you for being a part of this conversation and for participating in this and sharing the film. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Dr. Jinyu Lau, Serene Mai, and director of the film, Leo Chiang. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you. Thank you.